How do you recognize a phishing attack? Well, the first thing I will tell you, legitimate companies. So phishing attacks, for whatever reason, PayPal was one of the earliest targets for phishing. PayPal and eBay, which ironically is the same company now. Legitimate companies do not ask for sensitive info via email. So people used to get emails all the time from PayPal saying, click here to reset your password, or reply with your password. This is going back a few years before we really had a full understanding of these things. Legitimate companies don't ask for that information. So if you get an email saying, click here to reset your password, don't click. The best thing you can do, and we'll talk about it in a moment, but the best thing you could do is, if it's an email from Microsoft saying reset your password, go to Microsoft.com and do it from there. Don't click the link. Most of the time they will play on fear, as I've mentioned a couple of times. Now, that email that I just showed you, there was no fear. They just were, trying to start a conversation. I don't know the reason, but they were trying. But most of the time it is fear, and it could be fear of embarrassment. It could be fear of missing out on something. Today's the last day for 50% off. As a matter of fact, I think the PlayStation text messages I was getting did say something about 50% off or 40. I don't remember what the numbers were, but again, that was a red flag for me. Like, this thing can't even stay in the stores. There's no way they're going to sell it for 50% off. Suspicious activity. These are very common subject lines that I pulled from some research. Suspicious activity and a problem with your account. These are two of the most common subject lines that will indicate it's a phishing attack. Poor grammar. That used to be extremely common in phishing attacks. It is not as common anymore. They've gotten a lot more sophisticated. In fact, I know someone who fell for a phishing attack, an Amazon phishing attack, and what happened was they gained access to her email account. So they're inside her email account, and then she gets a phone call claiming to be Amazon. The caller ID even says Amazon because it's really not hard to spoof. Saying that your Amazon account has been compromised and somebody ordered a very expensive item. I don't remember what it was now. And she said, no, that's not me. Obviously, she panicked, fear. They said, well, we're going to need proof that it's not, that you didn't order this. And she said, okay, what do I need to do? And they said, well, first we're going to change your Amazon password. And keep in mind, they have access to her email account. So every time she changes her password, they're getting the email saying password change, click here if you did not change the password. So they're going back and reverting the password back to what it was. They eventually convinced her to in order to prove she is who she says she is, to purchase $2,000 worth of Amazon gift cards. And so she did, and she sent it to them, and she was out $2,000. Now, fortunately for her, Amazon reimbursed her the $2,000. So she got lucky there because they didn't have to. It wasn't their fault. It was her fault. But they got into her email account, and because they were in her email account, they were able to monitor the entire conversation. There was no poor grammar. They sounded very professional. She said it was like she was talking to Amazon employees the whole time. It was a very complex scam, and they've gotten a lot more sophisticated. And so this is what I'm saying is that you may occasionally get emails with poor grammar, and that's a red flag. Some of us aren't very good at grammar anyway, but don't rely on that as an indicator of phishing. Fake links. If you get an email with a link in it, even in the subject line, you can hover over that link. So it might say Microsoft.com, but if you hover over it, it says something else. That's how you know if it's not a real website. Again, I would still say don't click on it because they may have other ways of masking it, but you can hover over any links to see what it is. Direct monetary loss shouldn't be there. They don't use your name. This is another indicator that it's phishing. If it's, hello, and then they just go on with the email. It's I said it earlier, the spray and pray method. They're just sending out mass emails to a bunch of people hoping somebody replies, and some people will. Email doesn't match the company. So if you're getting email from paypal.com, but the email came from paypal1@gmail.com, then it's not legitimate. And then free email accounts. If they're using a free email account, that's another big red flag. Especially Gmail is, sorry, Teresa, but Gmail is one of those. but also even more so Hotmail. Like nobody really uses Hotmail anymore. Nobody really uses Yahoo anymore. AOL is another one. And I'm sorry if you still do use, I know some people still use AOL, but if most people don't, especially for business purposes. The free cable accounts, so at Comcast or at Cox, those don't usually get used in business for business purposes. So that's another red flag. So this is how you would recognize the phishing attack. I tend to question everything. So sometimes stuff comes in and it's completely legitimate. I had someone who questioned an email that came from the SBA when they were doing the loans last year. And they sent it to me and said, does this look legitimate to you? And I said, no, because the email wasn't coming from sba.gov. They were using a software from Atlassian, and I'm forgetting the name of it now, but it's a ticketing software. But I said, there's no way the SBA is using this software. Like it's a software you pay $10 a month to use it per user. So it's not that expensive. It's not a stretch for someone who's trying to launch a phishing attack to say, yeah, I'll spend $10 a month to be able to do this. And so it did turn out at the end, it was a legitimate SBA.gov communication. They were trying to confirm some details with her, but I said, whoever you communicated with SBA, call them up, make the phone call and see if it's really coming from them so that rather than sending your information through email, if they're asking for the LLC, the EIN numbers or bank account numbers or things like that, you don't want to send that in an email to somebody. You really shouldn't send it to anybody through email, but you should avoid it, especially if you don't know who you're sending it to.